Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chung, Vice President of the Singapore Business Group. Thank you all very much for attending this briefing. I can tell that folks are still coming in, so certainly we're going to wait a bit such that more attendees can join. But in the meantime, I'll just give a very brief overview of the Singapore Business Group. I gather from a quick look that some might be members and some maybe not. Okay, so the Singapore Business Group is a non-profit organization established in 1992. Back then, it was a small group of Singaporeans doing business or working in Vietnam. Since then, it's certainly grown. Personally, I came to Vietnam about 98, 99, have been an SBG member since. So it's evolved from a social club with a membership of about 30 individuals into a leading business group. And now we have about 350 members and still growing. So our vision is to be caring, cohesive, and a reputable premier business group in Vietnam. And our mission to foster business relations with other business communities, at the same time promoting social, cultural, recreational, educational, and charitable activities. Okay, so with that, I'd like to quickly and briefly introduce the topic and the speaker for today. So we're joined today by Mr. Nguyen Thanh Hai. Very proud to say that he's a teammate and a friend from Baker McKenzie. He is focused specialization. It's on power and renewable energy. As a bit of a backdrop as to why we're having this briefing, he was pulled in pretty much last minute. I think it was last Friday, right? Last Friday, for a workshop, a dialogue organized by Ministry of Industry and Trade and I think Office of Government to discuss PDP8. So I know many of you folks in that industry has been following it closely to see what is the power plan for Vietnam. And it seems to have bounced around a bit, I have to say. So they did a last minute bit of a dialogue last week. Hai managed to set aside time and attended that, took part in the discussions. And I think it's really great now that he's again set aside time for our SBG members, so he can give a briefing about some of the points that were discussed that day. Also, just before I turn it over to Hai, I would also like to mention that Hai is our Singapore Business Group rep, sitting at the Vietnam Business Forum Power and Energy Working Group. Okay, all right. So I see that I think more of the attendees are in already. So Hai, I'm going to hand it over to you. And sorry, just one last logistical point. We know everyone's busy. So we're trying to keep the briefing to about 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes. And then we have a Q&A at the end for about 10, 15 minutes. I think you can use the chat box, and if the group is small enough, I think you can just raise the questions as well. Okay, so Hai, over to you.
Thank you for the introduction. Everyone, can you hear me okay? Yes, so I'm sharing my screen now. As you mentioned last Friday, I have been I participated in the meeting with the MOIT Ministry of Industry and Trade and Deputy Prime Minister for a meeting at the office of the government on the National Power Development Plan number 8. And at the meeting, the MOIT prepared a report for PDP8, the new draft. So for today, I would like to have this meeting to brief everyone, particularly SBG member who are interested in power energy and project in Vietnam, who may want to see the new changes from the draft for your businesses. I'm happy to, as you mentioned, I'm happy to support SBG at the Vietnam Visit Forum Power Energy Working Group, take into account a number of comments from SBG members for the discussion with the government from previous renewable energy to gas to power and other businesses for our SBG member. So for today, my discussion will be focusing on PDP8 to give update on this matter to everyone. First, I will give an overview of the last Friday meeting at the Office of the Government. Second, I will be updating on the new draft and November draft PDP8 circulate from MOIT at the meeting. With the new, I will be highlighting the key changes compared to the previous draft. You may already know October version or March version. They have a detail about that. So I will be highlighting based on the MOIT proposal on the key changes, as well as the detail on the new draft, November draft, as well as the key implementing mechanism for implementing the PDP8 going forward. As you mentioned, we'll spend some more minutes to receive your question and comment so that we can discuss and follow up with the government in due course. Now, I would like to update on the overall overview of the last meeting. As I mentioned, the meeting chaired by the Deputy Prime Minister Thanh and MOIT at the Office of the Government focusing on the draft PDP8. And the context is, as you may know from the previous one, October, the MOIT submit a draft October version to the Office of the Government for comment. And more recently, the Prime Minister of Vietnam had the COP26 conference. And after that, in early November until now, MOIT has been working on the new draft. And at the meeting last Friday, 19 November, MOIT made a presentation about the new draft, which had been updated post COP26 conference. This is quite a close meeting, so the Deputy Prime Minister and MOIT only invite a limited participant. I were able to make it, as you mentioned, making it at very early Friday morning at the meeting. At the meeting, we also see other public stakeholder and private stakeholder. You can see here the Railway Ministry and also EVN. From private sector perspective, there's certain chamber and association. SBG a member of VIII, the Vietnam Visit Forum. So that's why I'm updating everyone about the new changes. In the meeting, from the beginning, Deputy Prime Minister Thanh made an opening remark about the overall perspective and policy of the government and the context for the meeting. Then the MOIT Prime Minister and made a presentation about the new draft, the key changes. I will be highlighting them in the next slides. We also have a 2 round of comment from the public side and private side at the meeting. I had a chance to make some speak and comment on the draft in 5 minutes. So now I would like to update in detail about the key changes in the November draft. This is based on the MOIT proposal at the meeting. The first point MOIT made at the meeting is post COP26 conference, Vietnam wants to reconsider the development of coal-fired power plant to make the continued project will be realistic, financially feasible for Vietnam, taking into account other issues like energy security and transmission line, things like that. Another point is relevant to solar. Now, as you know, Vietnam, we have a 17 gigawatt installed capacity of 51, 52 solar farm, but basically we still have see a procurement issue without because we do not have any battery energy storage system, the grid investment is still not aligned with the solar capacity, then we see a number of curtailment on the project. And now solar without battery energy storage only available for generation around 4 hours a day. So that's why the MOIT view that for the purpose of energy security, for the purpose of determining the balance on the energy system, then they would take out solar power capacity for that calculation purpose only. The next one, policy from made by the MOIT. As we know, we now have a 4 gigawatt installed capacity for wind, but we still see 3.5 gigawatt onshore and nearshore wind fail to achieve the commercial operation under the recent feed-in tariff program. Then the government policy still continue to promote for onshore wind, nearshore wind, as well as expansion for a large-scale offshore wind project, taking into account the long-term of investment until 2030 and even up to 2030. The next point MOIT made at the meeting is they're concerned about the efficiency of the transmission grid, particularly from long distance. That we all know most of the renewable energy sources that come from the central and the south Vietnam, while the energy demand coming up in the northern part. Then they're concerned about the transmission from the south to the central or the central to the north. Something like that. They will try to make it more efficient by limiting power transmission across the region. The policy from the government is to limit the power within that region based on the generation side. One of the points we discussed at the meeting is to make it, align with the generation and make it feasible for the overall energy market. I will be discussing in detail later. Particularly on the coal project, compared to the previous draft, they a reduction of 7.8 gigawatt. Basically, MOIT they then identify certain coal-fired projects they deem infeasible at this stage to propose for removing from the PDP8 draft. This is still in the draft form, but this is the proposal from MOIT by now. In terms of capacity compared to the previous October draft, we see that the coal-fired power capacity by 2030 now still account for 25.5% of the total installed capacity. This is lower than the version in March or October, 1.3% compared to March version and 3% compared to October version. It's lower than, but there's still a number of coal-fired power projects still can work from PDP7 device. So I will be speaking about that in later slide. For gas to power, there's some changes, but the change compare in terms of ratio is not major, 1.7% of compared to the previous draft. For renewable energy, and I mentioned the policy is still for particularly wind. So the capacity for wind and solar still aim to account 27.4% total energy mix. They a slight change, 2.5% compared to the October version. I will discuss in detail in the next slide. Now I would like to highlight the key changes in the draft compared to October draft and March draft. Particularly MOIT, they want to compare with the March version for this purpose based on the high load scenario. So in the new draft version, the total installed capacity of the total market is about 155 gigawatt installed capacity by 2030. And by 2045, the total energy installed capacity would be 333 gigawatt. So compared to the March version, they some slight change. There's some reduction here compared to the mass version, 24 gigawatt compared to 2030 and 35 gigawatt by 2045. MOIT, they trying to looking at the new energy demand, looking at several options to propose this reduction. As a result of this reduction, then if we're looking at the particular energy sources for coal, for example, we see a reduction of about 7 gigawatt, as I mentioned. Even though by 2030 we still see the current graph up to 40 gigawatt installed capacity of coal plant. For gas, there also some reduction compared to the previous graph in terms of the overall reduction. I will discuss in the next slide. For renewable energy, the key point here is for onshore and nearshore wind project, particularly by 2030. Solar onshore wind on nearshore wind still be added compared to previous graph to be up to 17 gigawatt by 2030 and 38 gigawatt by 2045. One of the chain I would like to highlight here for offshore wind, as you may see from the previous graph, one graph is 2 gigawatt, another graph is 2 gigawatt. Now the addition for 1 gigawatt, and MOIT want to highlight that this point to reflect the composite comment for the building. I will discuss on that in slide. In terms of investment on the grid and generation, the reason why the MOIT propose slower install capacity is because they want to make more efficient in terms of both generation and transmission. For example, if you can see here, the transmission, they propose from MOIT reducing the transmission line around 5,000 kilometers of 500 kV transmission line and about 1,300 kilometers of high-voltage transmission line. Even the concern about cross-region transmission. As a result, MOIT trying to justify the reduction on the investment at cost for under the new graph. You can see here by 2030, the reduction for both generation and transmission would be up to 33 billion US dollar. While until 2045 will reduce 21 billion US dollar. Now I would like to update in more detail about the particular energy mix. This slide shows the current state of Vietnam energy market. As we know, for solar, I mentioned earlier, under PIC 1, PIC 2 solar farm, we already have up to 7 gigawatt installed capacity operating solar asset. Wind recently, 84 wind farm achieved the commercial operation, now up to 4 gigawatt installed capacity. Moving on by 2025, under the graph, November graph, post the 26th meeting, then the installed capacity will be increased to 106 gigawatt. Solar, as you can see here, the change is not major, even those for sale to EVN. But for wind, the installed capacity will be increased. Similarly, by 2030, the total capacity will be increased to 155 gigawatt. And wind will be increased at this step into account offshore wind. By 2045, then you will see the major increase for solar and wind, particularly for solar, 63 gigawatt installed capacity, and for wind, 74 gigawatt. Most of large-scale offshore wind will be at this step. Now I would like to discuss a bit more detail about it. Energy sources. First, with coal, as I mentioned, there is some reduction of 7 gigawatt compared to the previous graph. But if we see the capacity proposed, we would see a number of coal-fired power plants have been carried forward from PDP7 revised to PDP8. As you can see here, by now, by 2025, we would have addition 8 GW for coal-fired project. By 2030, we'll have addition 10 GW and another 3.4 GW up to period up to 2035. One of the points we discussed a lot at the meeting with MOIT in the government is if Vietnam really want to achieve net zero by 2050, that's discussed at the COP26 meeting. Then the PPA, you know, for coal-fired power plant project in Vietnam is 25 years. So we really need to phasing out coal more quickly if we achieve the target. So that is the point we try to discuss, and the people at the meeting discuss a lot around to make a realistic, proposal taking into account the COP26. So I understand that the MOITs will be updating further following the discussion on this point. Further discuss with the provincial authority on this to identify the feasible coal-fired power plant and which is not feasible, something like that. For gas to power, compared to the current capacity, then by 2025, under the draft, 7.2 GW will be added. Another 22 GW by 2030, addition 17 GW by 2025. So this is an addition. If we looking at the total capacity, then by 2025, then it will be a big addition also until 2035. And we updating on the next one into solar. Solar energy, because the booming of the FIT1, FIT2 solar plant and the procurement issue, it seems that from the MOIT proposal, then the capacity addition for solar is not significant. But Vietnam already at certain P7 revised recently. And one of the points discussed at the meeting is MOIT policy, the government policy still promote for solar, and particularly for on-site behind-the-meter scheme for rooftop solar installation without any export to event grid, no impact on the grid. Then the policy of the government to continue to promoting for SBG member CNI business to continue to deploy rooftop solar on-site self-consumption model is still continue to be promoted. This is the point emphasized and agreed by the meeting. Wind, as I mentioned, the change, particularly here, is more on offshore wind. When we see 4 GW for 2030 and 10 GW for 2035. For hydro, Vietnam hydro power project, basically mostly exploited, and the change for hydro is not the most different from the previous draft. To highlight the changes here for everyone. One of the points I made at the meeting at the sticker, PDP8 is not only on the energy mix, along with the energy mix and the policy. Vietnam should quickly regulate and approve the legal mechanism for implementing the PDP8. From the private sector perspective, if we want to continue the business for energy sector, then we need to continue formulating the relevant mechanism. As we all know, for solar and wind renewable, for example, then we are now waiting for approval for wind project not yet achieve the commercial operation, looking for direct negotiation or tariff mechanism or option mechanism with the MOIT. And the corporate DPA, synthetic DPA is another model where mainly SBG member in this industrial and commercial consumer are looking at right now, among other things. The law on electricity and also energy efficiency have been proposed for the revision, and the electricity law now also to revise to make it to facilitate for private investment on the transmission line. So that is the key change. Now, I think in short of time, in 25 minutes, keep it short. If you have any further question, just let us know. We'll be happy to address any question or comment from our SBG member. And if you have any comment, I would be happy to support, continue supporting everyone on the next step of discussion with the government.
Okay, thank you very much, Hai. So yeah, so that was so that's the briefing. You know, but like we said, we're happy to set aside, you know, a bit of time. If folks have any questions, you can put it into the chat function, or I think you're allowed to unmute yourself too. So it's up to you guys. But anyways, just to get the ball rolling, and admittedly, it's also for my own education as well. Okay, I do see one question, but let me ask my question first. So Hai, sort of in terms of, you know, big next steps, you know, what's going to happen? I take it that this is not finalized. It seems like, you know, it's a work in progress, which has been in progress for quite some time. So in terms of big next steps, what do you think is going to happen?
Thank you. At the next step, MOIT now working on the update version on the PDP8, and at request from Office of the Government and Deputy Prime Minister, Office of the Government and MOIT will continue to have another workshop, online workshop with the relevant provincial authority. Now, this week, the provincial authority have been requested to report on the status of development in the provincial level. They will submitting the detail to the Office of the Government. Maybe in early next month, MOIT and the Office of the Government will have a more discussion on that within the government agency to update the draft. And after that, MOIT will prepare new proposal to update. And based on the current status, it's likely that MOIT and the Prime Minister Office will not be able to finalize the PDPA this year as expected. Maybe they need to take more time to reflect comment and suggestion, and we hope that they will be able to finalize early this year.
As we all know, TED is coming up pretty soon. So do you think it's something that they will try to finalize pre-TED, or it's just going to go past?
Yeah, I think from the government perspective, I see that they have a strong incentive to finalize the PDPA as soon as possible. The change in this draft is mostly based on the recent change from COP26. So the government trying to reflect it for alignment with the COP26 discussion. Looking at the market as well.
Okay, which is a good segue to the question that you can see in the chat function as well. Hi, so I think this is from Lynn, right? Lynn Nguyen. So what impact is PDP8 likely to have on the country's efforts to decarbonize the economy? So I think someone have read in COP26, when Vietnam declared net zero by 2050. So yeah, so what do you think? How do you think PDP8 is going to have? What kind of impact would it have on Vietnam as it tries to decarbonize?
Yeah, Vietnam has many programs to achieve the decarbonization of the economy. Not just the PDP8, Vietnam now working on a number of master plans, including energy master plan, climate change initiative, and also green growth strategy, a number of other programs. And as you know, in terms of climate change, now Montreal working on plan to rapidly implementing the environmental protection law. But in terms of PDPA, obviously, one of the most important documents would impact on the country effort on decarbonization. Because as we know, in terms of emission, the emission coming from the energy sector is stronger. Mostly concerned about the coal-fired power plant, chemical work from PDP7 revised. So the people trying to make more investment on the renewable energy, but the issue on intermittency of renewable and the lack of the slowdown on the investment on the grid and things like that. Battery energy storage now consider study, but not yet implemented. Then Vietnam continue to formulate the legal framework for battery energy storage, offshore wind, option mechanism to facilitate this kind of.
Okay. Hi, as you can see in the chat function, Leon does have a question on how MOIT arrived at that overall reduced installed capacity. And indeed, I think this one question has been kicking up a number of times. But because you're talking around COP26, so Hai, do you want to address Lynn's second question first? So as you might see, the question there is, do PDP8 and COP26, which Vietnam just made a great commitment, share the same target? So PDP8, COP26, are they sort of aligned in terms of shared commitments, shared targets, or is COP26 going one way and Vietnam might be going another? Do you want to address that briefly first? Then we can go to Leon's question.
Sure. One of the point MOIT, as you know, want to clarify at the meeting is in terms of the net zero achieved by 2050, then it's also subject to international support to Vietnam. So basically, if Vietnam still needs international support to achieve that. So one of the questions discussed a lot at the meeting is without or with support from international country for Vietnam to achieve this target, then what is different? And from the MOIT perspective, obviously they would like to have international support for this purpose. But obviously it's a tough objective for the government. If we really need to facing our coal-fired power plant quickly, given the difficulty in terms of financing, and also the issue I discussed earlier. In terms of the question on the overall reduction from Leon, yes, that is a good question. Actually, we discussed a lot, and we also question about the reduction, because the draft from the proposal of MOIT at a meeting didn't make it clear on that point. But we understand that the MOIT considers various factors for the purpose of proposal, and the option, the scenario they use, and I compared in the earlier presentation, is based on a high load scenario and based on the scenario they use to make policy decision. It may be higher or lower based on different scenario, but for that particular scenario, the reduction compared to mass version. And obviously, for that purpose, the power demand is one of the key factors, as you already pointed out. Another point they are concerned on the reduction on the grid investment, which is also result in the reduction on the generation side in the energy proportion.
Okay, and then Shu Hui has a question on solar. Essentially, what is the impact on solar players and investors likely to be, since the growth is quite limited to 2035? And I think that's, I mean, just to add on a bit to that, I think that's the one on your first slide where it seems that a reduction on power from solar, but that's because they feel that for reasons of national security, you get X number of hours in sunshine and not enough battery storage power. So I don't know whether you feel it looks peculiar, but I know that questions have been raised around that. But anyways, to Shu Hui's question, so what's the impact on solar players and investors?
Yeah, it had a major impact on solar. But it's depending on whether you are brownfield investor or greenfield investor. For brownfield investment, as we know, right now in Vietnam we have a 17 gigawatt installed capacity. We have some issue about procurement right now for operating solar, and that is the point MOIT they concern when they make decision for new capacity for solar. Other than that, other operating solar, as we know, in the PDP8 revised last year, at the end of last year, 2020, then Prime Minister already approved around 5 floating solar and also 21 or 26 solar farm proposed in the PDP7 revised. So those projects still continue to develop based on the new mechanism like auction mechanism for solar, which is the MOIT looking on. And most importantly, the government message at the meeting, they considering solar as still encouraged sector with a focus more on rooftop solar or self-consumption model behind the scheme. So if investor or consumer looking at a corporate PPA transaction for self-consumption, then it still be possible under the new mechanism without a major impact on the grid of EVN or the capacity now is still estimated capacity and not a cap. So it means that based on the situation, then there can be further adjustment to the master plan.
Okay, so thanks, Hai. I think we're coming to the end of the session. I don't see any more new questions coming in. So maybe I'll just throw in a very last question for Hai just to wrap this up. Wish list, Hai, when the new one comes out. What are the 1-2 top things you wish will change? Apart from capacities all going up, I'm sure that's a very obvious answer. But sort of 1-2 key things that you hope, you wish that will change, that you feel it's going to be good for Vietnam and good for further investments and development in this space.
Yeah, actually, I wish many things, but in Vietnam is we need to be realistic based on the current status. And actually, there's still a lot of opportunity for investment. The thing is, we need to identify what is realistic and what is the right model for us to explore. I was quite optimistic about the energy sector in Vietnam, even though we still see a lot of challenges. For example, right now I'm supporting the government through another international institution on the designing the auction mechanism for renewable energy in Vietnam in solar PV onshore wind and offshore wind project. Last week, we have a meeting with the MOIT to get clarity on the model for offshore wind project. For example, we're trying to design a model where is in the future feasible for Vietnam based on the big integration with a smaller chain, but in line with international experience. Things like that we are still trying to do. And Vietnam, I think the government is very supportive to FDI sector, including SBG Members. So we hope that the relevant legal mechanism that I said in the last line earlier, in terms of option mechanism and the new tariff framework, if they can approve the mechanism soon, then we continue the business for many of our members. Battery energy storage is another hope for me. Not just the new installation, but also for new projects, but even for operating solar farm. If the government promote for battery energy storage in coming time with the new framework approved soon, then there's an issue about procurement. And also the transmission line, the FTT law now being divided, and hope that they will address soon on that issue for this sector to make investment. If we're looking at the large-scale gas to power project, for example, we really need to have a grid and also offshore wind. That is the key point we will be discussing with MOIT on channel.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry. Okay, I'll go. So thank you very much, Hai. And actually, Hai, I think reminds us of one very last important point, is that we do have dialogue with regulators, policy makers. Okay, and especially perhaps for those that joined a bit later, what I'd like to remind everyone is that Singapore Business Group is a member of the Vietnam Business Forum, a very powerful collective platform in which the business community can give their feedback to. I also like to remind our folks here that Hai is representing Singapore Business Group in the VBF Power and Energy Working Group. So if you excuse the pun, truly a fella that's plugged into the industry. So I guess as the final comment and reminder, if your business have concerns or questions, feedback, things that you want to raise, if you want to come forward with your company name, if you don't wish to name your company's name, etc., it all doesn't matter. What's important is that that there's a channel that you can give your feedback to and through. Okay. So again, on a logistic point, as I close off, the recording will be shared, I do believe. Hai has quite a lot of materials in his slides, so that will be shared as well. I guess particularly important is contact details are there as well. And again, final reminder, if you folks feel that you want to give any feedback or share any concerns, please send them through Singapore Business Group, through me, through Hai. This all get funneled in through ultimately Vietnam Business Forum, Power and Energy Working Group. Okay. All right. So with that, thank you very much. And I think we can draw this briefing to a close. Have a good weekend, everyone. Bye.